Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. As you may remember from last week's video, this week I'm going to be expounding on what happened and what were the results of my decision to pursue God over a job. We're going to talk a little bit more about the challenges, the trials, the pain, and quite frankly the tears that came from that decision. So after I made that decision to pursue God, some time after that, as I may mention before in the video, questions started to come, expectations started to come, and at first it was a little uncomfortable, but you were able to manage it. It was like, okay, I get why they're asking, I get it, I understand. But as time continued to go on, it started to intensify. The questioning started coming more almost, it felt like to me at the time, like demands. You need to go get a job. And it started to get more intense after a while. And now, after a while, I'm starting to think to myself, man, what am I gonna do? I'm playing with my mind of, I hear what they're saying, but I know what He's telling me to do, what God's telling me to do, and I feel like I need to do what He's telling me to do. I feel peace about this decision. When I'm thinking about going after a job, one, I feel like I'm just shooting in the dark, so to speak. There's no clear indication of what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I'm just trying to make this up and figure it out on my own and not know what I'm doing. But with this, it makes sense to me. I know this is what I'm supposed to be. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing what God is telling me to do. And mind you, the whole time I wasn't just playing video games. That was the majority of what I was doing. But it wasn't that wasn't only what I was doing. Just to clarify. So questioning is coming and it's intensifying. Family and different people that I respect, and it's starting to get hard because these are people that I highly respect. Out of anyone on this earth, their opinions I value the most, but also their expectations and their approval I value the most. So now, after a while, I keep giving this answer of, well, I feel from the Lord this is what I'm supposed to do. Questions are still intense, but then from there, arguments begin to happen, shouting matches, back and forth, and from these experiences, I'm starting to feel pain because it wasn't what I was expecting. It was hard for me to comprehend why I was going through what I was going through, and I'll shoot it to you this way. Here's why. It's one thing when you're pursuing the Lord faithfully, you're doing what you gotta do for God. You're serving Him faithfully. You're reading and doing all the things you're supposed to do as a believer. You're faithful to do those things, right? And if you come from a Christian family, you're doing the things that they approve of. You're doing things like if I'm reading my Bible, if I'm going to a Christian school, which I did, and those things are like, yep, we approve of that. Amen. Proud of you for doing that. See, but it's hard though when you're living by the ways of, mind you, of what you believe you're called to do as a Christian, but not only that, what people expect of you to do, but then yet to do something different, and as if all that you are doing for God and you are living for the Lord is nothing. And what I mean by that is this. At the time, I'm faithfully serving the Lord. I'm pursuing God. I had just finished a degree in Christian ministries, mind you, and at an all-Christian private university. I could have went anywhere else, but that's what I did. And I'm still in church. I'm still doing things. I'm still doing things for the Lord. And yet, because I pursued an option that God called me to pursue, which was Him. And the reason why I say option is because we have two choices in life. It's very simple. It's very black and white, very plain. Pursue God, pursue something else. It's that simple. We have choice. God is, and I hate to say it this way, but God can be an option to some. He can be an option when He should be the only choice. And that does take time to develop that. It does. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that my whole time, the moment I became a Christian in high school, that I faithfully pursued the Lord, because I didn't. There are times I got a little sidetracked, and instead of choosing God as my number one choice, which He should have been, he became an option. And the thing that I wanted to pursue, I pursued, and it cost me. It caused me pain, wasted time, and so many different things. But with all that being said, God is telling me to pursue this option, meaning, follow me. Option A says, he's saying, follow me. Option B, from family and everyone else is saying, go get a job, go get a job, go get a job. But I knew option A is what I was supposed to do. I knew that was what I was supposed to do. I just felt it in my heart. I've as much as it was hard, and as much as I had never experienced something like that before, in my heart of heart, I was solely convinced, and I knew this is what I was supposed to do. Even though there was no clear indication of a job, there's no clear indication of what I was supposed to do, there's no clear indication of what was going to transpire for me if I did this. But nonetheless, regardless if none of that stuff made any sense to me in the natural standpoint, I knew this is what I'm supposed to do. So I did that. And I was not expecting to get the reactions that I was getting, because I'm doing this not because I'm being lazy, not because I'm being a deadbeat, not because, quite frankly, I want to do it. No, I feel so compelled in my heart that I have to do this because God is telling me to do it. Now, I expected when I said God in that whole equation, when I mentioned like, well, I feel from God that I'm supposed to be doing this, that would have been the end of the story. That would have, all right, okay, that's fine, I respect that. But no, that did not happen. The opposite happened. And that was what I was anticipating. I expected that if I'm saying this is what the Lord is telling me to do, then that would be respected and we'd be done with the conversation. But no, that was not what happened. And no fault from their perspective for those involved who did this, because I understand from their perspective on the outside looking in, it looks crazy. It looks, what do you mean he's telling you not to get a job? That makes no sense, because it doesn't make sense according to tradition and natural things of what you're expected to do and the expectations. So of course it doesn't make sense. But from my standpoint is, if it's God, it should be accepted. But that wasn't what happened. Instead, the contrary. The traditions were still being pushed back onto me. We're still being pushed back onto me. And after a while of the jockeying back and forth, the saying no, and the fighting and the wrestling and all the different struggles with that, then I began to feel this deepening pain, because I began to feel their disapproval. And granted, I was never a perfect kid. And of course, even as a Christian, I still made mistakes. So I felt disapproval before, because I've made bonehead mistakes in my past. But it is hard when you feel disapproval from people you highly respect and look up to, whether it be your family, friends, mentors, whatever the case may be for you. And you feel the disapproval for a decision you're making in the name of the Lord. A decision you're making because you felt so compelled in your heart by the Lord, this is what I'm supposed to do. That wasn't what I was expecting. If I was just doing the worst, not living according to God's standards, just fell off, just partying, doing the craziest things, and on drugs, whatever the case crazy may be, just for the sake of the argument, I would understand that if they disapproved of me. Of course, that makes sense. But I'm doing something for the Lord. I'm pursuing God. But yet, because you don't understand it, you don't get it, this doesn't make sense to you, because he didn't tell you that, but he told me this. But even though he didn't tell you this, right? Even though he didn't tell you this, because you don't understand, or to be quite frank, you don't agree with that, now you disapprove of me. You disapprove of my decision. And that was a pain I did not anticipate it to feel. Being, in my case, and what I felt like, though there's so many examples of this around the world that, to be quite frank, I would even say my situation does not compare. But feeling I'm being persecuted for chasing after what God is telling me to do by family, but not just family, fellow believers in God. And I don't knock them for that. I don't, because I understand from the outside looking in, it does look crazy what I was saying at the time. But I had never expected to feel that pain. So after going through that and experiencing that and feeling that, it starts to weigh on me. It starts to weigh on me, because this didn't just go away overnight. This was literally a season. It was months of this just being in the trenches of questioning, of you feeling people's disapproval of you, you feeling people are upset with you, the anger, the mountain, there's just the frustration on both ends, just the battling going back and forth of do this, no, do what I want you to do what I'm telling you to do, no, I'm doing what he's telling me to do. And that fighting back and forth because of that decision that I made months prior, weeks prior. And after a while, the pain starts to really set in, because I never expected to feel being disapproved for doing and pursuing the Lord. I never expected to feel that pain. If I was doing something wrong, I would have expected that. But because I'm doing what God's telling me to do and I'm feeling this pain, I could not grasp that. But I realized now, looking back at it, which I even realized later on once that season had ended, that this is what it means to suffer for the sake of Christ, as Scripture talks about. You do things, when God says you to do something, I encourage you to go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter if you have people's approval or not. As long as you are solely convinced and you know it's what God's calling you to do, that's the one that matters the most. And the beautiful thing about God and the way He works, and which would eventually happen with my family and the different people, is that they would eventually come around and understand it when the time came. But at the time, they didn't get it. So that's what I love about the Lord. He doesn't leave it that way. We serve a reconciling God, and He reconciled my relationships with those people, because they're like, wow, now I see it. Wow, now I understand. But at the time, that wasn't the case. So I encourage you, go after what God's telling you to do, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. You do what God's telling you to do, because that's what I did. So I'm going through this pain, and I'm frustrated. I'm like, why can't they see it? And that was the hard thing. It's like, God, why can't they see, God, that I'm doing this for you? Why are they making it about me? If they're gonna be mad, I'm gonna be mad at you for telling me to do it. But why are they so angry at me and frustrated with me for doing what you're telling me to do? Because it's for the Lord. Why? And that pain, I could not understand that. And then the disapproval, and then, because the thing is, after these heated arguments and discussion, just because we wake up the next day and we're cordial, you know in the back of your mind that they disapprove of you, that they're not happy with what you're doing. And it's one of those things. It's like the tension that you can cut with a knife. It's just like the elephant in the room. You know, hey, we can all be sitting down together in dinner and talking and stuff like that, and that's great and all. But I know deep down inside, in the back of your mind, you're not happy with what I'm doing. And that's hard to stomach. And it made to the point where, for lack of a better term, I felt almost like a prisoner in my own home. I felt alone because no one understood me. No one understood what I was going through, because no one approved of what I was doing. And I found that so difficult. But it pushed me more towards the Lord to pursue Him and helping me work through that. And I thank God for Ashley, my wife now, because God used her in such an incredible way to keep me comforted. Because there were many times I actually cried in sheer pain, completely just miserable, frustrated, with the agony of my heart of, why can't they see it, that I'm doing this for you, God? Why are they treating me like I'm doing something wrong, God? I'm not doing something wrong. I'm doing what you're telling me to do. And I'll never forget this one moment that really made this whole situation kind of turn around for me. Even though the pain was still there, and it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen just like a snap of a finger. It didn't. But I'll never forget it. This is one time, one of the defining moments of the journey. Because mind you, this had been going on for weeks. The questioning, the what are you doing, all this kind of stuff, and the pain, the weight of that. Like, oh my gosh, like I know you don't approve of what I'm doing, and I can feel the stigma in the atmosphere of what I'm doing. And I know what people, and it's like you feel like, you're like, man, like people are saying behind your back because you're not doing what they expect you to do, and like that hurts. That hurts when you're not doing anything wrong. To be treated as if you're doing something wrong. That's hard. That's hard. But I'll never forget. There's one moment Ash and I were at my mom's house, and we're sitting alone in a room. Because mind you, I couldn't talk to anyone in my house about this because no one understood, and quite frankly, no one agreed with it. And her and I remember where I was exactly to this day. Sitting against, my back was against the wall. She was sitting right there next to me, holding my hand and comforting me, and I'm just bawling my eyes out, just crying because the weight of it. Because I had never felt such disapproval in my life from my family like this before. I had never felt such pain like this before. If this was, as a Christian, I've had experiences where non-believers kind of like ridicule me for my faith. I'm fine, I'm used to that, whatever. It is what it is. I had experience with that, so it wasn't nothing new. But to have it from fellow believers, but not only fellow believers, but from family, that was so hard for me. That was so difficult for me. And I'm sitting against that wall, my back against the wall, sitting on the floor, my back against that wall, Ashley's sitting right next to me. I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm crying, and I'm just in so much pain. I'm choking up as I'm explaining to her what I'm feeling and the pain I'm feeling. But I'll never forget this moment. In the midst of it all, and I'll be honest with you, the whole time, I'm not going to sit here and here and tell you that I was hopeful the whole time. I wasn't. But even though I wasn't hopeful, I had faith. My whole entire backing on this entire thing was one thing, a little seed of faith. That's all I had. I had no clear indication what was going to happen next. None of that. All I had was faith. That's it. God, I just had faith that you're telling me what to do. That was it. Nothing else. And then the compellingness in my heart that he gave me, yep, this is what I'm supposed to do, regardless of what anyone else says. So, I'm sitting there, I'm crying, and then out of nowhere, this peace comes over me. It gets me almost, it almost gets me choked up now thinking about it. This peace just fell over me in the midst of my pain, and I'm crying in this peace, and deep down inside, in the core of me, this hope starts to, it's like a subtle little fun, like someone light a match. It starts to just fill me, this hope, and this confidence, and this encouragement. And it's hard to describe what I felt in that moment. Words don't do it justice, but just this encouragement came. And I'll never forget these words that came out of my mouth. And I said to Ashley, in the midst, and I'm just venting my pain. And it's like a light switch went off in me. And I said to her, you know what? All the hell and the pain and the suffering I'm going through, in the midst of even being where I am right now. And mind you, there was I felt like if I was in the dark tunnel, I didn't see the light. I was right in the middle of the dark, and I couldn't see the hands in front of my face. It was that dark in that time. I remember telling us, like, you know what? Even in the midst of the pain I'm feeling right now, I would do it all over again. In the midst of what I'm feeling right now, even though I don't know how this is gonna end, I would do it all over again. Because in that moment, I was solely convinced from day one, even up until that point, that God was telling me to do this. And that God, even if I don't understand, even if they don't understand, even if the pain feels like it's too much for me, I know you have a purpose for this. And I am solely convinced. And I'm willing to go through more months, even if I have to go through this for years, God. I'm willing to go through it, God, because I am confident you told me to do this. That unlocked me. That moment unlocked me. Though it's hard to remember now. I don't doubt I may have cried still other times, but that unlocked me. That built my confidence. And then after a while, the tears stopped falling. Yeah, I felt my pain. The anger started to subside. The frustration started to lessen because I understood, God, there's a bigger purpose for this. They may not see it, but then the beautiful thing about God is this. Then I started to say, but they will one day. They don't see it now, God, but they will one day. And I'm saying this, not knowing how this is all going to end, without any clear indication how this is going to end, but yet, my faith started to stir. Was starting so strong. The weeks and the days and the months that would transpire after that moment, and then I started to pray and start saying, God, the day's going to come, they're going to see it, God. They're going to see it. Oh, God, they're going to see it. Oh, I can't wait for them to see it. I say all this to say, it is worth it to pursue God's plans over anyone else's for your life, and or even over your own plans for your life. God's plans are always better, and I'm a standing testimony today to declare that. And as we go forward in these next weeks, and you guys continue to hear our story, you're going to be like, what the heck? Are you serious? And all these crazy things that we've experienced and we've seen. But it all never would have happened if months ago, in the fall semester, on playing Xbox at home, I didn't say yes to God when He gave me an invitation to trust Him and to not to go the way that was expected of me. So next week, we're going to go, now we're going to focus on the hope. What happened, the impact that started to take place, that started to develop after that moment. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.